All right. So now we're factoring with ax squared plus bx plus c. The difference between what we're doing today and what we did last week is that there is now a number attached to the x squared. It's not just a 1. Okay? So we're first going to refresh what we did last week. Okay, we factored problems like this last week. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Who remembers how we would factor this type of problem? Yes, Lindsay.
You would do the x, yeah.
So the two parentheses and then the two x's. And then how do we decide what the numbers are?
You take 6 and then you do what times what equals 6.
Okay, so what are the factors of 6? And 1 times 6. And then how do we decide which factors actually are the ones that work? Okay, so in this case, we add them to get 5. So which of these two work out? 3 and 2 add to give us 5. So we'd say plus 3 and then plus 2. After we did that, what did we always do next? Yeah, we distributed it to check it. So we went, okay, so x times x, that gives us our x squared. X times 2, that gives us what? 2x. 3 times x, 3x, and 3 times 2, 6. So does that actually simplify down to what we have? Yeah. Okay. So that's what we did last week. Okay, so now let's look at the types of problems we are going to see this week. 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. Okay, now notice that there is now a number in front of the x squared. So this method works really well when we just have a 1 in front of it, because then we just get to focus on the product of the last number and the sum of the middle. When we have a number in front of here, we're going to look at something a little bit different. Instead of just looking at the product of what the product of 4 is, we're going to look at what 4 times 7 is. So we're going to go, okay, 4 times 7, what does that give you? 28. So now, using 28, we want to find all the factors of 28, and we want to pick out the one that adds to give us 29. So factors of 28, what would they be? 1 times 28. Oh, does that one already add to give us 29? So this one works. So what this does is this tells us how we're going to split up our middle number 29. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this now to say 7x squared plus, this is 1, so plus 1x plus, that's 28, so 28x, and then plus 4. So that takes it, we split it up into 4 terms. And if we have 4 terms, what can we do? We can group with 4 terms, which is something we already know how to do. So when we have 4 terms, we can take our first 2 and group our first 2 together, and group our second 2 together. And then who remembers what we do with grouping after we do that? The opposite of distributing. Take it out. So the greatest common factor. So what's the greatest common factor between 7x squared and a 1x? 1, and how about any variables in common? X. So we'll take out a 1x. And then we are left with what? Yeah, 7x plus 1. What's the greatest common factor between 28x and 4? 7, 4. So we take out a 4, and then what are we left with if we divide both of those by 4? 7x plus 1. Now, do we have parentheses that match? Yep, so that means that this factors down to 7x plus 1 times, what did we have left? X plus 4. Okay, so that's our first option, is we take the problem and we create it into a grouping problem. Okay, we're going to do this same problem, but I'm going to show you the other way to do it. And like I said, either way is fine. Just you're going to have to pick which way makes more sense to you and do it that way. So same problem, 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. Option 2 for how to solve these. Option 2 is more of a guess and check way. If your number sense is good, you're going to be able to guess and check pretty quickly. Okay, if your number sense isn't spectacular, you probably want to stick with the grouping way because it works the first time every time. So this guess and check way, we just split up into our two parentheses right away. And this involves the same thinking process as our last problem, is how we did it last week. So we look at your first term, which is a 7x squared, and you go, okay, what times what would give you a 7x squared? 7 times 1 and x times x. So we would make this 7x and 1x. Okay? So instead of having x and x here, we have two numbers. We have a 7x and we have a 1x. So next, we look at the last number, 4. We go, okay, factors of 4. What are all the factors of 4? 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. This means we have a couple different options for the last terms. And this involves us just picking one of the factors and working with it. Okay, so let's say you decided to pick 2 and 2 first. You would fill the last two terms in with 2, and then you would check it. Now for checking it, we know the first and the last terms work, so you just need to check the 2 that give you x. So you'll need to check 7x times 2 is 14x. 2 times x is 2x. Does that give you 29x? No, so that means 2 and 2 does not work. Okay, so instead of trying 2 and 2, what should we try? 2 and 2 didn't work, so then we would try our 1 times 4 at the end. And you do the same thing. Now you check it. 7x times 4 gives you 28x. 1 times x gives you 1x. And does that give us our middle of 29x? Yes. So this would be factored correctly. Okay, so see, two different methods, we get the same exact answer. First method works on the first try all the time. Second method, this is a lot of guessing and checking. Okay, so we'll do another example, and we'll do it both ways again. So example 3. Three x squared minus 17x plus 20. Well, this one was still part of example 2. You'll just have to wait and find out. 3x squared minus 17x plus 20. So which way are you guys leaning towards liking better after just the first problem? The first one, and you like the second one. Well, we're still going to do it both ways. Okay? So let's go through the first method first. So what two numbers do I need to multiply together? The 20 and the 3. So what is 20 times 3? 60. Okay, so now we have the 60. We list out all the factors of 60 that we can think of until we find ones that add to give us 17. 10 times 6, does that one add to give us 17? No, I missed it by once. What are other factors? 60 times 1. Does that one work? No, it doesn't work. 30. Does that one work? No. Get your calculators out. So we did it 1, 2. Does 3 go in there? 3 times what? 3 times 20. Do those add to give you 17? They subtract 2, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for adding. Does 4 go in there? I hear yes and no. So why don't...
4 goes in there, but it's not the correct answer.
4 times what?
Oh, 4 times...
What? 4 times... Not 5, 15, right? 4 times 15, that doesn't work. 5 times 12. Ooh, did we finally find one? It's 5 and 12. Okay? So you have to keep going until you find it. Okay? So 5 times 12. So, but we know 5 and 12 work. Now, how are we going to get 5 and 12 to be a negative 17? Make both negative. So we'd split our negative 17x up to 3x squared minus 5x minus 12x plus 20. You're right, a negative times a negative is a positive. But what's a negative plus a negative? Negative. Okay. So now, when we group this, we need a plus sign in between. So you want to make sure the 12 says plus a negative. And then we're going to group your first two together and group your last two together. And we look for greatest common factors. So what's the greatest common factor of the first parentheses? 3x squared and 5x. What's the greatest common factor? X. So we take the x out, and what are we left with?
The numbers.
3x minus 5. Look at your second parentheses. It's a negative 12x plus a 20. So what's your greatest common factor?
20. Oh, wait.
No.
It's
Bigger than 2.
4.
4, and since the negative sign is on the 12, we're going to make it a negative 4. And what do we have left if we divide each of those by a negative 4? Yep, 3x minus 5. So our two parentheses are now the same. Cody?
Yeah.
That's your first warning.
Sorry.
Okay, so the parentheses are now the same, so now we can finish factoring it. So we now have 3x minus 5 times, what did we have left over? X minus 4. So there, we factored it. Okay, do we want to look at the other method with this one too?
Yeah.
How about we'll do a new problem with the other method, and then we'll do this one with the other method so we see them both. No. Let's see, we did 3x squared minus 17x plus 20. Okay, so method number 2. You just start by getting the two sets of parentheses. Okay, your two first terms, when we multiply these two together, they have to give you a 3x squared. So how are we going to get a 3x squared? 3 times 3 is 3?
Wait, I'm sorry,
3 times 1, and how are we going to get an x squared? X times x. Okay, when we multiply our last two numbers together, we have to get 20. So, factors of 20. Multiply. What are 5 times 4, 2 times 10, and 1 times 20? And you just pick one of those to start with. You want to pick 5 and 4? Okay. This case, when we add these together, we want to get a negative number, so we're going to make them both minus. And now we're going to do the checking. So you're going to take the outer 2. So what's 3x times minus 5? Negative 15x. What's negative 4 times 1x? Negative 4x. That didn't work, did it? That doesn't give us negative 17. So instead of doing the 5 and the 4 in this order, we can flip them around. Exactly. So now we can put the 5 first and the 4 second. And then we check it and see if it works. So now we take 3x times minus 4, and we get 3x times negative 4 is a negative 12x. Negative 5 times, so minus 5x. Does that give us our negative 17? That one works. See, the reason why I say number sense for this one is because there are going to be a couple of you who will be able to find those products quickly in your head, and you'll just be able to visualize it, and that's fine. Okay, so if you can do that, this is the method for you. If that's difficult, we're going to stick with the other one. All right, we'll do one more example, and then I'm going to let you guys try it. Yes.
When we're doing the problem like this,
Yep.
circle it just like you did.
That's perfect. Just make sure you checked it at some point in time. All right, 10y squared minus 35y plus 30. And let's see, this would then be example 4. Now, we started off factoring by first looking at greatest common factors, and then we grouped, and now we're doing these trinomials here. But we might still have greatest common factors show up. And this is a case where we still have some greatest common factors. Notice how we have a 10y squared minus 35y plus 30. The numbers 10, 35, and 30 all have a number in common. 5. So if you see this happening, we first want to take the greatest common factor out. Because I don't think any of us wants to deal with 10 times 30 is 300. Finding all the factors of 300, does that sound like? No. So let's take the 5 out first, and that'll make it a little bit easier numbers. So if we take the 5 out, what are we left with? If we divide all of these by 5. Good, 2y squared. Good, minus 7y plus 6. Better numbers to work with now. Okay, those of you who like method 2, I'm going to encourage you right now to try to do method 2 on your own and see if you get the same thing we get. Okay? I think you're the only one. Try it. Try to factor this part now. Yeah, try to do that. Leave the 5 out. So now, what are we going to look at here to factor this? The 2 and the 6. So what is 2 times 6? 12. Okay, so let's list our factors of 12. 2 and 6, 3 and 4, 1 and 12. Which ones of those add to give you the 7? 3 and 4. Now we want them to add to give us a negative 7, so we should make both of them negative. So we leave just the 5. It just kind of hangs out in front. If you want to, you can completely not write the 5 here and wait until the final answer to write it. That's also okay. Just don't forget about it. So we have 2y squared minus 3y minus 4y plus 6. Now, in the middle, when we group this, we don't want this to be a minus sign. We want it to be a plus. So what should we do? Plus a negative. Good. Okay, so now let's group. So we'll group those first two together and the last two together. And then what do we do in each group? Take out greatest common factors. So what's the greatest common factor of the first group? Y. So we take the y out and we are left with what? 2y minus 3. Good. What's the greatest common factor of the next group? Negative 4y plus 6. 2, and because this says a negative 4y, we want to take out a negative 2, and what are we left with? 2y, 6 divided by negative 2 is minus 3. Now are the 2y's minus 3's, those match? That's going to be your first parentheses. And what will be your second one? Y minus 2. So your final answer here is 5, because you took the 5 out at the very beginning, and then 2y minus 3 times y minus 2. Is that what you got, Billy? You can have it in reverse order.
2y minus 2.
So something's not quite right. I'll come over there. I don't think it does. Okay. So on page 513, you are going to do problems 10 through 20. Okay? Like I said, so tomorrow there will be a video that